I mean, as Matt, as you know, you've attended several presentations. Kyle has too, of us talking about the bond election and the bond proposals to the community. And a question that comes up a lot of times is, what is it going to cost the taxpayer? What is the impact to the tax rate? And so the information that we make to make sure we provide to everybody is we start back in the 2020 bond. And so in the 2020 bond, that interest and sinking tax rate was 41 cents. So for easy math, you take your taxable value of your home, you divide it by 100, multiply it by that 41 cents, and that's the portion of your tax bill that goes to the interest and sinking account. It was at 41 cents. In 2020, that bond, the language used there as well was that there would be no increase to that interest and sinking tax rate. And over time, since 2020, that portion of the tax rate has actually decreased to 2 pennies. It's currently at 39 cents.
Howdy, and welcome to our series of Local Leadership Forum on the Allen Fairview Chamber Insider. Here, we will delve into the workings of Allen and Fairview governance. I'm Matt Foster, your host, bringing you the latest updates and in-depth interviews with people making decisions that affect our everyday lives. From City Hall to your home, this podcast aims to give you a comprehensive understanding of local policies, plans, and projects. And today, we're discussing with Allen ISD the upcoming bond election, and we're joined by Dr. Robin Bullock, Allen ISD Superintendent, and Brian Carter, Chief Financial Officer for Allen ISD. Thanks, Robin and Brian, for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. I always like to start these conversations with a little bit of a softball for our listeners that may not be as familiar with the Allen School District. So tell us a little bit about the school district, how many kids, how many campuses, how many employees.
All right. Well, that is a softball one. So thank you for that. We have in Allen ISD, as you know, and probably many of our listeners or viewers know, we have a great school district, a supportive community, and something that I'm extremely proud and blessed to be a part of. We have about 20,800 kids, so we're right at 21,000 students this year. We've got 16 elementary campuses and elementary campuses and early childhood center, and then we've got 3 middle schools, our freshman center, and our high school. And so that makes up our almost 21,000 students in all of those campuses. We have about 2,800 employees, and so we are the largest employer in the city. And so we are very proud of that. We just had a niche rating that was launched statewide that ranks school districts in the state and really in the country as well. And we're number 6 in the state. We're number 1 in Collin County. We're 90th in the country out of over 10,500. And so we're really doing great things here from all aspects, from a curricular standpoint and curriculum, academic standpoint, and just supporting our kids in their growth.
That's awesome. I actually did a little bit of Googling before I got here, and I know it's always dangerous when you do that. But I also saw that we were 7th by Dave Ramsey in the entire state.
That doesn't surprise me.
Which is, kind of a guy that knows a little bit about finances, I think you could say. And so I thought, Brian, next we would go with the hard questions for you, if that's okay.
Oh, nothing but the best right here. Let's do it.
So I know that we could do probably an entire lecture series of hours on the topic of school finance here today. But if you could briefly go through the different types of taxes or the different tax levels that the school district has and what they can do with those taxes.
Sure, absolutely. So, and again, thank you for the opportunity to talk with you guys this morning. So in the School Finance 101 setting, the taxpayer will see a single tax rate. For instance, this year, the school board adopted a tax rate of $1.12. Inside the school districts, that is actually made up of 2 buckets. We have what's called a maintenance and operations part of that tax rate, which is 73 cents of that $1.12. And then we have an interest and sinking side of the tax rate, which is 39 cents. The maintenance and operations part of that tax rate is the day-to-day expenses. 80% of that is salaries for our staff, and the other 20% is utilities and soft costs, supplies, materials, things of that nature. The interest and sinking portion of that tax rate, the 39 cents, can only be used to pay our mortgage, basically, is how I equate that to our homeowners. It's how we pay for the debt that is associated with school district bond elections. And so those two buckets are mutually exclusive. We cannot mix funds across those. We get a question every now and then, can we pay teacher salaries from the debt portion of the tax rate? And that answer is no, we cannot mix those together. In our personal houses, we may just have one checkbook that writes a check for all of our expenses. In a school district, we have to keep those two checkbooks completely separate.
Well, that makes it a little bit easier. I always like to tell folks that it's teacher salaries and stuff and buildings and things is kind of the best way I usually kind of outline those two. And so I know this coming November, and the reason we're talking right now is that Allen ISD residents have an opportunity to vote on a $447 million investment in the school district, essentially. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to me a little bit about what's included in that investment? I know your colleague couldn't be here, but I'm sure y'all two have heard the pitch enough to tell me.
Sure. So within that bond proposal of it's $447,499,700, there are three propositions in there. By legislative statute, we do have to separate that bond election into different propositions depending on what the purpose of those dollars would be. And so roughly $419 million of that is in Proposition A, which is dealing with our campus improvements, a lot of the renovations that go to those campuses, our safety and security upgrades across the district, and then other capital improvements, things as simple as concrete and waterproofing of facilities to those full-blown campus renovations. I believe we have 7 campuses that are in there in that bond election to receive a complete renovation inside and out, front to back. And then Proposition B is about $5.3 million or so. That is for the resurfacing of 2 track facilities within Allen ISD. That's at the Lowry Freshman Center and Curtis Middle School. Those facilities have to be in their own proposition legislatively because those facilities seat more than 1,000 people. And so any renovation to a facility of that nature has to be in its own proposition. And then we have our third Proposition C for technology devices. That is to support our one-to-one environment. So our students are all on a one-to-one device program, and also for our teachers' instructional devices when you walk into a classroom and see devices at that teacher's workstation that he or she uses to instruct class on a day-to-day operation. And so those devices must be in their own proposition. So 3 propositions, as you mentioned, totaling about $447 million.
And I'll just add to Matt, if I can real quickly, the Proposition A, I know that he mentioned the campus renovations and some other things. Technology, there's some infrastructure type stuff in that, but as 2, we've got safety and security upgrades to the campuses, camera refreshes and additions to run more up-to-date technology on those camera systems, and then transportation and buses, buying some buses, upgrading the systems on the buses to include a GPS type tracking system so that parents can know where their kiddos are and when they get on and off the bus and those kinds of things as well. So that Prop A, which he talked about, is the largest one, and it includes a lot of things.
Yeah, one of the things that I get to learn a lot about in my volunteerism with the city is a lot of Parks Department items. And I know if I have heard it once, I've heard it a million times, the words pickleball. And so I heard a rumor, and so I thought maybe you might clarify this and help me with it. One of the tennis courts may or may not be lined with pickleball courts for community use.
Go ahead, Brian. I know you're the pickleball guy, so go ahead.
Well, this was not my idea. This was the community's, the Project Kids group. But yes, we do have some tennis courts at the Lowry Freshman Center that have been closed for years. And I don't know the exact number of years, but probably in excess of 7 or 8 years. The foundation of those courts is unplayable and unusable. And so as the Project Kids group was going through the project list for this proposed bond election, those tennis courts came up. Number one, the ability to resurface and repurpose those courts to where they're usable now. It would take some stress off of our high school competition courts for our freshman center. But then they had brought up that if the courts were going to be resurfaced and redone, would we also look at including pickleball lines there so that the community could use those courts in the evenings? And we absolutely said if that's what the Project Kids group would like to put into this bond proposal, we would be more than happy to have that contractor put those lines down, and then that would be open for community play in the evenings.
Like I said, as a parks guy, I love to hear that, and I particularly love the amount of partnership that the school district and the city have on a lot of those parks facilities and different natures. So that's really great. One of the things that I know a lot of folks are going to want to talk about is the tax rate, and particularly the INS rate, both before and after this bond. So can you talk a little bit about where you see that rate today? Does it go up with this? What does that look like?
Sure, absolutely. And that's a very common question. As Matt, as you know, you've attended several presentations. Kyle has too, of us talking about the bond election and the bond proposals to the community. And a question that comes up a lot of times is, what is it going to cost the taxpayer? What is the impact to the tax rate? And so the information that we to make sure we provide to everybody is we start back in the 2020 bond. And so in the 2020 bond, that interest and sinking tax rate was 41 cents. So for easy math, you take your taxable value of your home, you divide it by 100, multiply it by that 41 cents, and that's the portion of your tax bill that goes to the interest and sinking account. It was at 41 cents. In 2020, that bond, the language used there as well was that there would be no increase to that interest and sinking tax rate. And over time, since 2020, that portion of the tax rate has actually decreased to 2 pennies. It's currently at 39 cents. So not only were we able to not increase that tax rate at all, but we were actually able to reduce it by 2 pennies. When you look at the total tax rate, which is another piece of it, our total tax rate in Allen ISD in 2020 with that bond election was $1.43. That tax rate now, the total tax rate that was adopted in August, is $1.12. So the total tax rate has actually dropped 31 pennies. Now, 2 pennies of those have been associated with the debt side. But when I talk to community members, the total tax rate that is on that statement is down 31 cents. And so with this current bond election of $447 million and change, we will be able to do that same item as we did in 2020. We can use that existing tax rate of 39 cents to fund this level of debt. So we were able to do that in 2020, and we're confident we'll be able to do that again in 2024.
Howdy friends, Super Dave Quinn here. Thinking about expanding or relocating your business in Collin County? Come discover Fairview, Texas, a community with a prime location, great tax incentives, and an unbeatable quality of life. But don't just take my word for it. Tune in to the Getting Neighborly podcast to meet your future neighbors and hear why they believe Fairview is the perfect place to grow your business and to build your life. Visit us today at fairviewtexasedc.com. Thanks. Make it a great day.
Every campus, I think I've heard y'all mention this, right? Every campus is touched by this bond in one way. Every student will be impacted in one way, shape, or form. And there is not any sort of tax increase with this. And I think a lot of times that can be really hard to just wrap our brains around, right? Like when you say, hey, Matt, I want to borrow this amount of money, but you're never going to have to pay me any more than what you pay me now. Is kind of complicated. Can you talk a little bit about how the school district manages that debt? Because I really think that's the key to the question, right? Like if I took out $447 million in debt, that's a totally different thing than how you might do it.
Sure, absolutely. And there's a big difference between the property taxes and the property tax rate. The way we look at that is I always try to equate everything I talk about in school finance to our own personal lives to try to make that connection to make it easier to understand. And so the example I use is let's assume that you have a home mortgage that you've done for $400,000 and you've chosen 25 years on that mortgage repayment. So in Texas, a school district can sell its debt or borrow money on up to 40 years, on up to a 40-year term. Allen ISD has chosen to limit that to 25 years. When we have a home mortgage, that $400,000 mortgage on 25 years, we have the one mortgage, we have the same debt payment or the same mortgage payment every month for 25 years, assuming we don't do improvements to our home or something like that. In a school district's debt environment or mortgage environment, we have 25 individual mortgages, mortgage 1 through mortgage 25. Each one of those has a different amount of debt in it at a different interest rate. So how we manage that is we work with Hilltop Securities. Jeff Robert is our financial advisor over there. He's been with the district for a long time. So we go out each year and look at that debt profile of those 25 individual mortgages and go to the market to see, is there an interest rate environment out there in any one of those 25 categories, 25 years, that is better than the rate that's there right now? And if there is, then we take that to the Board of Trustees, and we just brought one to the school board in August that is a mixture of lower interest rates and an additional prepayment to our principal, just like in our home mortgage if we chose to make an additional $200 payment each month on our mortgage. So we actually just brought a $30+ million debt service savings to the Board of Trustees in August. It'll take all fiscal year. It'll take between now and February, March to finish that. But so that is how we manage the first piece of it is we look out every year to see, is there a better interest rate environment in any one of those 25 years that we can, A, reduce the interest expense, which means the taxpayer dollar is working harder for them within the school district. B, is there an opportunity to make an additional payment on principal, which reduces the life of that loan? And then C, just to maximize those taxpayer dollars. So that's how we manage that debt every year. The other part of it goes into play of when we go to borrow money, and I'm sure we can talk more about this as we go through here, but we match the debt to the life cycle of that asset. And so, for instance, Proposition C on our technology devices, those are our Chromebooks for our students. They have an average life of 4 to 5 years. When we go out and borrow money to replace some of those Chromebooks, we only put that debt in the first 4 years of that 25-year profile so that we're not paying interest in year 8 for a Chromebook that is no longer within the district. Same thing on school buses. School buses have a life of about 10 years, so we sell that debt across a 10-year profile instead of carrying it out 25 years.
So another way, or I guess another question some folks might have is, so like, let's say my son goes to Cheatham Elementary, right? And I think I saw Cheatham is on the list for a renovation, which is amazing. But let's say that's in 2029. I don't know where it is on the schedule. Let's say it's at 2029. You don't borrow the money for that today as soon as it's approved, right? You wait until you get to that point, and then you borrow that money. So all of the debt isn't necessarily incurred on November 3rd at the day after the election, right?
Correct, yes. And so the way that works, if an election is successful, what really the voters have told Allen ISD is, we have approved you to borrow $447,499,700. And then the district then completes the projects that they have told the community that they would do. And so the way that works is then my team and our facilities team are getting together and we're looking 12 to 18 months out. So it would be pretty much all of 2025 and half of 26. Within our project list, what is the total value of cash that we would need to fund those projects over that next 12 to 18 months? The example I use is, so for instance, if that number is $80 million, then we would go to the market to borrow that first $80 million, complete those projects. And then as that 18-month period is coming to a close, we do the same thing all over again. So then for the next 12 to 18. And so that $447 million would take probably 3 to 3.5 years in order to borrow all of that debt. So to your point, we do not go out and borrow it all at the beginning, because if a project is not slated to happen until 3 years from now, we don't want to be paying on a project that we haven't even started yet.
You know, I know we're getting kind of close on time, so I have one last question. One of the things that I love about Allen is that when folks move here, they really kind of stay here, and we stay long term. And this has been an amazing community. You know, I was looking it up. We talked about some ratings that the school district has gotten recently. I saw Wallet Hub made Allen ISD the second most the city of Allen was the second most affordable city in the state, which is another amazing feat in all of that by itself. But one of the things that brings is folks live here a long time and they stay here. And so we have a number of members of our community that are over the age of 65. And so I thought you might kind of mention what happens to their tax rate, because I know there's some tax exemptions for tax freezes at the age of 65. How does this impact them?
Sure. So yes, if you live in Allen and you're over 65, and I believe the City of Allen's website has those forms on there that you can request for the over 65 exemption. What that does is that freezes the tax levy, or the amount of school district taxes, for the rest of your life. And so if I'm a long way from 65, thankfully, but at that point in time, for example, if the school district portion of my tax bill, right? So there's also city, county around the state. You may have a MUD district or something like that. But if the school district portion of my taxes was $3,000 this year and I filed that exemption, it remains $3,000 for the rest of your life, unless you do some major renovations to your home. But barring that, it remains at $3,000. And so for an over 65 exemption, the district's bond election has zero impact on their future tax bills because their tax levy is frozen.
I do want to end with giving y'all an opportunity. Is there anything that you want to add maybe that we didn't talk about, or an important piece of the bond that you really want to highlight again, that to make sure that the community members know?
Brian, you may want to add to this. He alluded to it just a little bit, and going back to values and tax rates and those kinds of things. The district doesn't set the value of somebody's home, and people like high home values whenever they're selling their home, but they don't necessarily like to pay those taxes on it when they're staying in it. But so I think that there's a lot of misconfusion some confusion out there related to my property values are going up or my home values going up. The district should have more money. And Brian, I didn't know if you wanted to touch on that just really quickly. I know we're running out of time, but I think that's probably an important piece as well, just because we've been so finance focused on this particular call.
Sure. Yeah, it's the double-edged sword of a declining tax rate. So the school district has the lowest tax rate since 1993, but our homes are worth more than they've ever been. And so how do you explain a declining tax rate and increasing home values? And someone says, well, my school district my total tax bill was $4,000 3 years ago, and now it's $6,000. And so the school district should have more money. But as those property values go up, our tax rate on that goes down. And so when you have an increasing value and a declining tax rate, they net against each other in the first phase. And in the second phase, Allen ISD is part of the Robin Hood program or recapture program within the state of Texas, which is a program designed around property wealthy school districts. So this year we do have budgeted about $4 million of our local tax collections to be sent back to Austin as part of that recapture program. So we have had that question that Dr. Bullock has just mentioned, but the increasing values are matched with a declining tax rate to keep that revenue stream fairly level. Yeah.
Well, again, I just want to thank y'all again for taking some time today. I know early voting starts, I think, in 2 weeks, right? I think right at 2 weeks. So, yeah, we're excited. I know the chamber, and I think Kyle Jacobson, the new chamber CEO, is with us. I know the chamber adopted a resolution of support of the bond, and so I really hope that our viewers and listeners get an opportunity to get out and vote and ask questions. And I know y'all got many more road shows coming along the way. And so thank y'all again, and we'll talk to you real soon. The Local Leadership Forum on the Allen Fairview Chamber Insider. We hope today's episode has given you a clearer understanding of the issues we face in Allen and Fairview and how it's being addressed by our local leaders. Stay connected with us for more discussion and exclusive interviews that bring you the workings of our government closer to you at home. I'm Matt Foster, ensuring you stay informed and engaged. Until next time, take care and keep making a difference in our community.